Stock up football players. Let's talk about five guys who, from the start of spring to now, have raised that stock through spring practice. Plus, let's get your comments on a fun edition of Locked On Badgers. Let's go.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, Badger fans? Welcome to Locked On Badgers. Thank you for joining. Thank you for giving us a sliver of your time, because time is the most valuable thing any of us has. And I appreciate y'all. Thank you for helping build this into an incredible Badger community. It would be nothing without the people who listen and comment and talk about it and join in the Discord and join in the discussion. So I say it all the time because I mean it all the time. Thank you. I'm humbled to be here with y'all. Today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. We have got to talk about this. It's the fast-paced game that lets you team up with your friends with tournaments to unlock awesome prizes, cool playing pieces, hilarious emojis for taunting your friends. So download Monopoly Go, now free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. Let's start with football. Let's start spring football. Let's start stock up players. A lot of basketball talk recently, which is awesome, but let's get into football. 5 stock up players. Again, from where they were at the beginning of spring to where they are now. I'm going to start with one that I think is maybe the key to the offense in many ways. I mean, the key to the offense is quarterback play. But aside from that, Jake Renfro. Like, the center play was so inconsistent last year, and that wasn't Board's fault. That wasn't Tanner Bordolini's fault, who got drafted, is going to be playing for the Indianapolis Colts. Amazing athlete, a good blocker, but his snaps were so inconsistent because he wasn't a center, and he was forced into that. And honestly, quite frankly, there should be more credit given to him. He didn't complain about it. He didn't bitch about it. He just went out there and he balled out to the best of his ability at a position that wasn't his natural fit. But we saw the impact, right? We saw the impact the snaps had on quarterback play, on the timing of the offense, on the rhythm. Longo's offense is a rhythm offense. And then we saw what happened when Jake Renfro got in against the big bad LSU Tigers of the big bad SEC. He carved them up like a turkey at Thanksgiving. They weren't ready for that Big Ten passing attack and that Big Ten speed. Now, listen, LSU's defense was actually terrible, tragically bad all year. But my point is, the snaps changed and the offense got better. Renfro coming into this spring, I felt like you still got to walk on eggshells a little bit, right? Because you don't know what you're going to get from him, because he's had so many injuries, so much bad luck, missed the entire season and missed all of last year except for the LSU game. It sounds like he's healthy. It sounds like he's ripping. It sounds like he has steadied the offensive line. Major stock up to our boy Jake Renfro, who I said is one of the 2 most important transfers in last year's cycle. I did a transfer portal ranking. It was Tatter Mordecai, then Jake Renfro, because he was the guy stepping in to solidify the offensive line, manning that important center spot. He was an all-conference player. I think if he's healthy, we get that all-conference player this year at that pivot in the offensive line. Major stock up. He's healthy. He's playing. He's ripping. That is huge for this Badgers offense line and this Badgers offense in general. Next one is Trech Kekahuna. And people are like, how are you going to stock up? Everybody loves Trech. I agree. But Trech is like a bullish stock that you buy into, and then it exceeds all expectations, right? He's been incredible. He's been absolutely incredible, and everybody's raving about him. Everybody's talking about him. Every person that goes to practice and writes about it, from Halpern to Temple to Osen to Evan Flood, they all have been universal in their praise of this jitterbug, explosive receiver. He's been. I would say he's exceeded the hype up to this point in spring practice, and everyone knows I have a bet with Justin. Is he going to go? Is Trech going to be over under 40 catches? I'm starting to worry. And for the record, I hope he gets over 40, because I think the offense will be better if he does. So that's a bet I'll be happy to lose. But I think stock up on Trech, because he came in with hype and then he's exceeded that hype based on everything we've heard. So stock up on Trech Kekahuna. Stock up Austin Brown. Lots of buzz. Got playing time last year. This was a player who came in as a highly regarded recruit, physical, athletic, fast. He's been playing a lot around the line of scrimmage, but there's reports that he's really doing a good job shutting off a lot of the underneath passing concepts, crossers, some of those shallow plays, running with tight ends, that kind of stuff. He's a physical dude, brings a thump in the box. Stock up on Austin Brown. It sounds like he's going to be an integral part of this defense this year. And I think he's stepping into that role where he's going to be more of a playmaker and really complement what Hunter Wohler can do in that back 7. Stock up the quarterback room. I thought about this for a while. I wanted to do Tyler Van Dyke, and then I kind of want to do Braedyn Locke. And then I was like, I think I'm just going to like Legos. I'm going to stick them together and we're going to do this as a duel because Tyler Van Dyke came in and he was challenged kind of immediately by Braedyn Locke. And it sounds like over the last half of the spring practices, he's really stepped up his game. It looks like he's edged ahead in the competition. He's had stacked multiple good practices in a row. It sounds like he's starting to get comfortable. So stock up there for coming in, seeing competition, and then gradually getting better and better, but also stock up for Braedyn Locke because when we got Tyler Van Dyke, we talked about it in this show. We talked to people on the show. Everybody just kind of said, yeah, this is Tyler Van Dyke's job. Braedyn Locke's going to fall over. He's not going to challenge. It is what it is. Maybe next year, Braedyn. And it sounds like Braedyn, and this quarterback battle is not over. Don't make no mistake, but Braedyn is battling. So I think it's stock up on Braedyn. I think it's stock up on Tyler, which means I think it's stock up in the quarterback room. And then Mabry Metor is getting those third string reps, which I think is also pretty important and interesting for his development. But I also kind of think Nick Evers saw the writing on the wall with Mabry coming in and with Braedyn Locke taking another step. Braedyn Locke coming into this season more physical, stronger, faster. I think it's a stock up quarterback room. I really do. I think there's two quarterbacks this year that you could probably play and feel pretty good about. And that is a great spot to be in. Last one here on my big stock ups, Max Lofy. You talk about a guy that was written off or a guy that people, unless you were like looking at the roster, I think there's some Badger fans who were like, oh, yeah, Max guy. He's still on there, right? Maybe? No? Yes? Chris guy? Maybe? Yeah, he's really impressed this year, according to people I've seen that have been to practice. He's, I think, probably one of the reasons Michael Mack transferred. I think Lofy kind of ate into his opportunity as a guy who can play in a couple different spots, has some physicality, veteran player at this point that's been around and seen a lot of practices. It's nice to see a player like that because what do we talk about so often, or what is the discourse that you hear thrown around college discussions in bars and across tables and in living rooms, right? Oh, players now they don't care, they transfer if they don't have a job, they don't want to compete. Max Lofy's a guy that competed. Like he could have easily packed his bags and left, and no one would have complained. No one would have said, why don't he's a guy who stayed and battled. And it sounds like he's moving up the depth chart and he's potentially going to be in that 2 deep at the cornerback spot. So stock up Max Lofy. Good job. And a couple other ones I wanted to rattle off quickly. Stock up Jake Chaney. Now, Jake Chaney's always been kind of one of my guys. I feel like he's gotten overlooked. I thought he played better last year than people thought. And I've been pretty staunch on that pedestal with Jake Chaney. And I think when the linebackers, this transfer group came in, the Tackett's and the Jaheems and the Cheeks, and then you get this really interesting group of younger players with Lafayette and Heiberger, I think people kind of wrote off Chaney too early. And I said it at the time, and then you come into the spring and people are like, yeah, Chaney looks really good. Instinctual, he's faster, he's bigger, understands what Tressel's wanting to do more. He's a leader in that group. I think this is going to be a pretty good year for Chaney. So stock up Chaney. Vinny Anthony flashing. Vinny Anthony and Quincy Burrows are two guys on the perimeter. This is something when Will Pauling was on the show, he said, because we were talking receivers, we're going back and forth, talking about Quincy Burrows, who Will Pauling loves. But Will Pauling also said he missed a guy. He said Vinny Anthony. Vinny Anthony can move now. We've had a couple of practices recently where Vinny Anthony has flashed, has made big plays. He's a speed guy. Vinny Anthony, all the way back to high school, was a speed guy. Vinny Anthony and Quincy Burrows on the outside. And I said this with Quincy, but I think it applies. Maybe you put these two together and it applies to both of these two. I don't think there's a lot of receptions there for them, but I think every other game, they might have like a 40-yard catch. They might just get behind the defense because those are really fast perimeter guys. My next one, Nazir Forkran, has put together a really solid spring, building off what I thought was a pretty good year last year, where he was still kind of getting his feet wet, jumping from Grand Valley State to Wisconsin. So Nazir Forkran, stock up. Kevin Haywood, listen, he came in with hype, and he has exceeded hype, right? He is in the 2 deep. He's gotten some reps with the ones. He looks beyond the park for a true freshman. So Kevin Haywood, potential left tackle of the future, yes, major stock up. And last one I'll throw in here was on the show, Thomas Heiberger. I said at the time, this is one of my favorite recruits in this class. He has ridiculous upside if it clicks. Things don't always click, but he is like NBA level verticality, explosiveness, 38-inch vertical, I think it was, huge wingspan. I mean, he's like a werewolf. He's a ridiculously high upside ceiling type of guy. And it turns out he's wired the right way. Talking to Brady Collins, he's like, yeah, this dude's wired the right way. If you have a guy who's wired to compete and battle and get after it, and he has elite athleticism, this is an NFL guy. Like I put the flag in the dirt. Like, I think that's an NFL guy because there's not many people walking around on this planet of ours that have those type of measurables and also have the want to get after it. So stock up all those guys. Really quick note: Tommy McIntosh and Michael Mack both to the portal. I mentioned Michael Mack. He did a little dirty last year. The NCAA did not approve the waiver for him to transfer from Air Force to Wisconsin, play right away. He is entering the portal where he can go hopefully find some playing time somewhere. And tip hats off, obviously, coming from Air Force, the academy there. Tommy McIntosh entered the portal, bigger receiver, 6'4", 200-ish. Just too many bodies. Like, these are the things that happen as you bring in depth. Players are going to leave, and I hope they find good opportunities. No hard feelings there. A lot of things to be excited about this spring. A lot of players there that I'm pretty excited about with stock up. We're going to come back with your comments and a lot of people pushing back on my take, but probably Rajiv and I's take that, hey, the basketball team might be okay. We're going to get into those comments next on Locked On Badgers. But first, a quick break for friends of the show over at eBay Motors. eBay Motors remains the number one source for all your car part needs. Listen, there have been times where I wish eBay Motors would have existed. I had this Jeep one time, this Jeep Wrangler, and I was off-roading. And when I say off-roading, I was like driving through a ditch, and a stick like poked through my canvas top. And this is a pretty new Wrangler. I know this is early in my marriage, and I think this might be the end here of a marriage. Like, my wife's going to kill me. So I went and I bought some fishing line and some black tar glue stuff, and I like stitched my canvas soft top back together and glued it with this huge chunk of like horrific looking tar. It looked like a Frankenstein surgery. It was ridiculous. If I had eBay Motors, I could have found the right part at the right price for the Jeep Wrangler that I desperately needed to fix. eBay Motors has all the parts you ever need, over 122 million parts. They're incredible, fast, easy. They ship it to you. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to use customers, but they guarantee that you're going to get that right fit for your car the first time. eBay Motors, the right parts, the right fit, the right prices. Eligible items only. Exclusions do apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. All right, let's keep going here. Let's get your comments up because, again, this show is about the community. That's 100% what it's about. That's why we have a Discord. If you want to go talk Badgers, come to the Discord with us. It's a Badger forum. I'll put it on the bottom of the show here. Great Badger discussion, gaming, fishing, food, beer, Packers, everything in between. It is free. No politics, no Gophers. All right, let's get some of your comments up. These are all off YouTube channels. This is from OR Farms. I forget what the OR stands for. He says, just stop it already. This is a bottom feeder team at this point. These players are going to struggle figuring out the offense, just like Storr. But guess what? None of these guys are AJ Storr. Yeah, no, on the last part, let's start there. You're right. None of these guys are AJ Storr. None of these guys have that type of athleticism from the three. Amos has athleticism. I don't think he's as bouncy as AJ Storr. So you're right. Like, none of those guys are AJ Storr. It's not a bottom feeder team. Again, this is where I push back at times when people say the program's in shambles or it's mediocre or it's a bottom feeder. A bottom feeder team isn't a 5 seed last year. And I think they did pretty good in the portal. Listen, time's going to tell on that, right? We're gonna look back next year and say, yeah, it either worked or it didn't. Where we sit right now, I kind of like the 3 pieces we brought in. And I'm going to say this again. I've been starting to talk about this, and I feel like Badger fans are putting some of the players that left on pedestals that maybe they weren't quite at. Chucky Hepburn was great. Chucky Hepburn was a Badger. I was very sad when he left. He is a Badger tattoo. Chucky Hepburn wasn't even a third team All Big Ten point guard. Like, he averaged under 10 points and shot like 33% last year from 3. All I'm saying is it's not to disparage Chucky. These are not irreplaceable losses. AJ Storr was a great scorer, and that is going to be missed. He put pressure on the rim, got free throws. He forced other teams to game plan for him. He created space for other players. He also had an inconsistent shot, didn't play well enough on defense, and doesn't rebound the ball. Like, I'm just saying these aren't irreplaceable losses. And it's possible you have lesser names, but a better roster. And I don't know. I'm not saying that's for sure. I'm just saying it's possible. And I'm kind of okay with what they did in this offseason. And I feel like the team will be deeper next year. I think they'll be a better shooting team. I think they could be just as good next year with internal development of Nolan Winter, John Blackwell. And I think Freete is going to play. This is from Shrimp Gordita. And thank you for the comment, by the way. He says, I'm happy to see Tyler Wall gone. We have to stop recruiting guys that can't shoot or create a shot off the dribble. So I am not happy to see Tyler Wall gone. I do think if you are recruiting guys that can't shoot or never develop a shot, it limits you offensively. But Tyler Wall, I'll just be real on this one. we're going to miss him defensively, and we're going to miss his toughness, or we're going to miss him on the glass. As I look at this roster right now, those are things that I don't think we have. I don't think we've replaced that from Tyler Wall. I think there's a chance Big Ten teams physically push us around down low. And they did that. Listen, they did that some last year. And I think Tyler Wall is a more physical, tougher version at 4 than Xavier Amos is going to be for the Badgers. Amos is going to give you different things. He's going to space the floor better. I think we're going to have to find ways to find some toughness. I would love if we could find like just a 6'8", 240-pound bowling ball that we could bring in for 10 minutes a game and just inject some toughness into the front court. I would love that. But I don't know if that'll happen. Big Apple Bucky says, NIL insanity has exploded this year. I suspect at some point athletic directors and donors are going to put their heads together and put some limits on the whole thing. Yeah, it will happen. I almost promise you that, Big Apple Bucky. Thank you for the comment, by the way. I will say this. I think there's an element of this right now where players also know changes are going to happen, which is why you see so many jumping now. This might be the only opportunity this year, maybe next year, where players have unregulated access to making the most money they possibly can without restrictions or contracts or regulations in place. Think about like if basketball had 1 year where they ripped up the salary caps and said, all right, we're going to fix this all going forward, but for a 2-year span, you have free reign to do whatever you want. How much money would LeBron get? How much would Giannis get? How much would Luka get, for Pete's sake? Like, how much would Jokic get? You go down the list. I think players are taking advantage right now because they know there's no regulations, and they probably think that those are coming down the pike because they are. So, yeah, that's probably kind of why you see some of this movement right now. But I agree with you. Things are going to change. Mark F says, I love this comment. Greg Gard. Nice shout out to Calipari there. Greg Gard. Getting these 4 stars from the portal. Excited for next season. Let's go, Mark. Let's get some excitement. Because there's not a lot of it in the chat. JB says, Rajiv, seriously? I'm going to try to do it with JB's, what I think JB's voice would be in this. Rajiv, seriously? We lost 3 of our 4 best players, our red shirt 4-star, 2 bench guys. We replaced them with 2 guys who were injured and didn't barely play last year. And another guy. That's from JB. That's how I assume he's going to say that if he was actually reading it. So you look at what we lost. Like, I think there's wording out there where people say the Badgers have lost 7 portal guys and they've only brought in 3. Like, we're not. This is no disrespect to absolutely anybody, but I'm not really counting Isaac Lindsey as a loss, or Connor Sejan as a loss, or Gus Yalden as a loss. Those guys didn't play. Like, if you're gonna say we've had this mass exodus of players, we've lost 3 contributors, like real contributors that played a ton last year, that were in the rotation at the end of the year in crunch time. We lost 3. We lost Wall. That's a big loss. We lost Storr. That's a big loss. We lost Hepburn. That's a big loss. We replaced them with 3 guys who, in their previous full healthy season, played big roles. We've actually brought in more points per game than we've lost. Now, they've done it at different levels, and it's not a one-to-one translation. We're also bringing in Daniel Freitag. Like, we didn't just replace him with 2 guys who were injured and another guy. We replaced him with 3 portal guys. That, by the way, when you say that other guy, it's Xavier Amos. That's a pretty good dude. And Daniel Freitag as well. Like, I think you're not looking at the full equation, JB. And I love you, bro. Like, you're awesome. And come on the show at some point. This is from Mark. Talking about Kirk Penny. I think Penny's background may be surfacing a bit with getting more offensive skilled-minded player shooters. Maybe that's what's happening. Yeah, it's possible. Listen, he's definitely brought in here with an offensive focus. So it shouldn't surprise anybody if the recruiting and/or transfer targets have an offensive focus to some degree, maybe shifted more onto them. But I would also say a lot of these players that we've recruited feel like guys Greg Gard and Wisconsin would have typically gone after anyway. So I think there's influence there. I think it's too early to say. And I would love to talk to him at some point, but I do think there was a snippet that Kirk Penny's going to help with international recruiting. I think that could be a really interesting niche that the Badgers could get into. There's a lot of great ball played overseas, New Zealand, Australia, Europe, a lot of great ball. And that's an area Wisconsin maybe could have a bit of an in with Kirk Penny played a ton internationally. So that's something that potentially there's a nice in there. All right, we're going to take a quick break. Friends of the show, a bunch more coming up. Do we need another big? Not impressed with where these players are coming from. A lot more coming up from you guys, your comments. But first, a quick break for friends of the show over at Monopoly Go. And listen, I've said this before. I'm a competitive dude. Like I will I will lose sleep over losing games. I will lose sleep over losing bets and challenges. Monopoly Go feeds into my competitive side. It is the modern twist on the classic board game that we all love, that we all played, that we all gathered around the table at, trying to get those hotels built up, trying to get the railroads, trying to get the utilities. Maybe not so much with Orient Avenue. I can pass on that one, no big deal. But give me Tennessee, give me those oranges, those greens, those blues, those dark greens. That's where it's all at. And now you can play it mobile, right? You can play it against friends across different boards. It's Monopoly, but for our generation, for the newer generation, do it on the go, do it on the way to Camp Randall. Download Monopoly Go free on the App Store or Google Play. It's been downloaded over 150 million times for a reason. It is awesome. It is fun. It is Monopoly. Let's go. Download Monopoly Go for free on the App Store and Google Play. All right, let's keep going here. More comments. Let's get more comments. Let's get more thoughts from the community. This is from Commandant Clink. And Commandant's a great dude. Commandant's one of my friends, but I think he disagrees with me a little bit here. He says, strange show. We lose all the top guys we were after, but everything is fine in the land of Oz. Time will tell. So that last part, let's start with that. Time will tell. That's it, right? Like, time will absolutely tell. And in a year, we're going to look back and say, yep, he did enough in the portal. No, he didn't. And if it's a bad year, he's probably, like, I don't know. Like, we're going to find out, right? We're going to figure out. So that part's correct. I said this in the show with Rajiv, and I'm just going to reiterate kind of where my thought process is. I just want coaches that have answers. And you're not going to get all the guys you target. Can you pivot to something else, right? Can you make a move to get something else that also works? Because there's 1,000 guys in the portal. There's more than one point guard that works at Wisconsin. So you miss on Hunter. There's another 100 point guards in the portal, right? I think it's okay to pivot to Camren Hunter. Or not, I said, you missed on Hunter. Who did we miss on? I'm already losing my thought process there. But my point is, if you miss on your plan A, there's a lot of guys in the portal that are quality D1 players. I don't think it's the worst thing to pivot. And the ability to pivot, I think, is a skill. Now, there is absolutely, I don't want to diminish the fact that these aren't the plan A targets. And that is a very valid point. I just don't know how much of a separation there is between like a Frankie Fiddler guy or a Xavier Amos, right? How much of a separation is there between the plan A target point guard and Camren Hunter? I don't know if there's a lot. And the fact that Gard was able to pivot, brought guys in quickly after his first option fell through and landed those guys. I think individually, when you look at all three of these players, are pretty good fits, actually. And they all bring something offensively that can help them. Now, defensively, I'm worried. I'll be straight up. But we were pretty bad defensively last year. So maybe the plan is just to replace the offense and try to play better team defense. Evan Malone says, I see that Tonje turns the ball over a lot. I don't think he'll be a good fit. Yeah, I don't love the handle on Tonje, Evan. I think that's a good point. I do not love the handle, but I don't think he's being brought in for shot creation or isolation scoring. I think he's being brought in as you think of a chessboard, right? All the parts move in different ways, and they work cohesively to develop a strategy. Basketball is chess in motion in a lot of ways, and Tonje is being brought in as a spacer. He's a guy who's going to sit in the corner. He's going to play off the pick and roll. You know, I was talking to Rajiv about this. If you have more spacing in the pick and roll, like when you would run the pick and roll with Crowell and Hepburn last year, it's difficult with a guy like Wall who can't space. Right now you have Amos and Tonje who can space it. It just makes it more difficult for the defense to help there. And I think that's what Tonje is brought in to be. I think he's brought in to post up on some smaller players and then space the floor and provide shooting. So I agree with you. I don't love the handle, but I don't think that's what he's brought in here to do. I don't know who had this comment. Dennis Hughes. Until a few days ago, most Badger fans never heard of Hunter, Amos, or Tonje. Could have said the same thing this time last year about Storr, and 2 years ago this time we didn't know who Klesmit was. Doesn't matter if the kid can play. The kid can play on Wisconsin. Dennis Hughes. What's up, Dennis? No, that's a good comment. I think optics play a part, right? When you hear these are the plan A targets, and then you go watch film with Fiddler, you get really excited, and you had it in with Fiddler. So I understand from a fan's perspective the frustration there of losing the guys that you thought you had an in on, and then that circles back to Greg Gard. Can you close? But I agree with you. Like if Amos had just been the primary target, and I think he was good enough to be, I think Badger fans would somehow be more excited about him. But when you watch the film and you look at the numbers, he's a pretty good option, a pretty good fit. So no, on Wisconsin, Dennis Hughes, I agree. Tim Olson says, and appreciate the comment, Tim. Dennis, he said Central Arkansas, Northern Illinois, that's all Gard can recruit. Not impressed, period. Yeah, a lot of people have echoed this sentiment. I would just say be careful labeling all players from lower levels as guys incapable of playing at this level. The college basketball right now is rich with examples of players coming from lower levels and exploding. Dalton Connect is a great example of this. Hoopers can hoop, man. And if you're balling at Northern Illinois it's a D1 school. This Xavier Amos hung 26 on Northwestern last year. Also hung 6 on Iowa, so he didn't have consistently, but players at lower levels can play, and we've seen that. We've seen that consistently with people transferring up over the last couple of years and having impacts. Now, it doesn't mean it's going to work out for all of them. In fact, I think odds are if you bring in 3 transfers, not all 3 of them are going to translate, because that's recruiting in general, right? You don't know. But I don't mind getting players from lower levels. In fact, that's what a lot of the transfer portal is. That's what a lot of the Blue Bloods do. This is from, I think this is from Mark. He said, nice to see you without the hat. I was on the previous show. He said, you got a good head of hair. Now do a shorter cut on the sides. Look at this. I got the cut. Gel it a little bit without cutting the top, but do a comb back. It'll look great. Thanks, brother. Thank you for commenting on the locks. It's one of my underrated physical attributes. Rick Thayer says, are we grabbing low-hanging fruit? I don't think, so Xavier almost had offers from Virginia, I think Iowa, that was a real battle. I know Camren Hunter had several schools that reached out to him. He was a 4-star transfer portal guy, according to the recruiting rankings. John Tonje was committed to New Mexico. These guys had other D1 offers. So I don't think, listen, we're not going to UNC and plucking a 4-star off their bench necessarily, but I don't think it's really low-hanging fruit, right? You're not pulling a guy that had no other offers from D1 schools. Craig Hendricks says we need another big. Yeah, I've said it consistently, man. Craig, I would love to get another big dude. Not even a big dude. I don't need a 7'2" dude. I just need, because there's a lot of 7-footers that aren't physical and imposing, right? That's one of Crowell's issues. And I'm a bigger defender of Crowell than most, but he's not a physically imposing guy. And there's 6'7" guys that are physically imposing. That's what we need. We're missing a tough guy on the interior, a guy who will box out, who will, rotate over from the weak side and in front of a driving guard and put his body on the line, who will challenge a shot and not care if he gets dunked on, who will dunk on somebody and then get in their face. You need a little of that. You need a little bit of that. And I think this roster is still missing it. And it's going to be difficult against some of the more physical teams in the Big Ten without that type of presence. This is from Liam. He said, it's not a particularly good sign when you start off with, he understands the pick and roll and pacing. Sounds like you watched a few videos of the guy and decided I can whistle Dixie about him to the fan base. I don't fully understand the comment. And Liam, I appreciate it. But understanding the pick and roll and understanding pacing of the game, those are key attributes to a point guard. A lot of what we do offensively comes out of the pick and roll, and not everybody's good at it. Not everybody understands how to set their defender into the picker. Not everybody understands when you come off that pick, where your shooters are, when you have to pull up, when you're looking for that roll man. Not everybody understands the pacing of the game. I've coached fast players, fast point guards who never understand that sometimes you have to take some speed off the throttle to set the defense up, to allow your actions to happen. Right? I think those are really good things. I didn't mean those as backhanded compliments. Camren Hunter's not the perfect player, but I do want a point guard who understands how to run a pick and roll. And I do want a point guard who understands pacing of the game, space, those kind of things. I think he does some of that. So, yeah, I don't think it's whistling Dixie. I think those are legitimate things he does pretty well. And he was around the 70th percentile as the pick and roll ball handler last year, or his last full year. That's pretty good. In the upper third of college basketball is the pick and roll ball handler. It's not perfect, and it was at a lower level, but I do think he gives you some of that. Smo says we should run the swing. Yeah, I always yell at people saying we don't run the swing anymore. This year, maybe we actually should, right? Our bigs are spacing guys. Amos, Crowell, Tonje. Not that Tonje's really a big, but he's more of a 3. And then our guards with Hunter, Freetag, I think, could even post a little bit. Blackwell can post a little bit. Might not be the worst year to run more of the swing. It wouldn't shock me if you see that a little bit. Let's see. A couple more comments here. Jeff Krause says, replacement for Chucky. That's laughable, but keep dying on that hill. I'm telling you, Jeff, Chucky has been put on this pedestal. He's not Jordan Taylor or not Like, he's really solid. He's a really solid point guard. There were a lot of people frustrated with Chucky last year, stretches of games. And I want to be super careful because I don't want to turn this into a Chucky's gone, oh, he sucked. No, I said several times throughout the year last year, Chucky was our best player, our MVP, because he ran the show. But as long as you get another point guard in that can run the show, what Chucky did on the court is not irreplaceable. I think people are getting a little caught up in the nostalgia of Chucky Hepburn, the fact that you lost him, the fact that he got poached. It feels a little worse than it was potentially. The loss was potentially, is all I'm saying. It's like if you know a wound is coming, you can kind of brace for it. But like when you don't and it surprises you, it hurts more. It's like the Band-Aid just getting ripped off suddenly. I don't be shocked if Camren Hunter is just fine as a point guard in the Big Ten, is all I'd say. James Shushby says might be doing more 3-guard offense next year. Yeah. I hope Greg Gard is open to lineup versatility and flexibility next year. I think that's an area he's struggling at times. I would love to see some lineups with Hunter, Klesmit, Blackwell, Tonje, and then maybe Winter or Crow, or even Amos. Like, you could do a lot of fun lineups with this group if you wanted to go small and get a little faster and really create a ton of spacing. I love this thought process, James. I haven't spent a ton of time even thinking about it yet because these guys just came in. You know, the other thing here, Hunter's bigger. Hunter's a 6'3", 6'2", thicker point guard. Tonje's big, well-built. Amos has flexibility in the way he can switch. You could do a lot more switching next year if you wanted to defensively too. There's defensive versatility potentially here. I'm very interested in it. This is from Giuseppe. He said, like his size and strength, 6'3", 200, which defensively at least he will not get physically bullied, though lack of quickness could be an issue. Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think physically he's not going to get pushed around as much. He's going to be stronger in the post. He's going to be able to contest shots a little better. I do think he's a little slow-footed, and you could see people straight line drive him a little bit more. Again, that was an issue with our defense last year, and I think we probably got a little worse at that. I'm not here to blow smoke. Like, we got worse in some areas this offseason. I think we got better in some areas too. And I'm curious to see if anything else happens, if they're able to bring in a little more beef somewhere or another player. It's going to be a really interesting team next year, and I'm excited for it. All right. Thank you all so much for tuning in, for watching the show, for submitting comments, for talking about it. Y'all are amazing. You guys are the best. On Wisconsin, and we'll talk later.